Now, I think League is fun, and chances are that's a hot take. But why would that be? I feel like the first things I'll hear about when people speak against League is that it's toxic, the balance team is high all the time, the power creep is nuts, skins and monetization are terrible too, and those are the common arguments. We haven't even gotten into my personal beef with the game. I've felt power creep more than anything since I play off meta. I get toxic chat as often also as a result of my picks, and you know, my favourite champion was removed from the game. But that's not what this video title implies. No, I'm actually here from the depths of hell and imperfect hatred to tell you League is fun, in my opinion. It's not really praise of the game itself. I can name you many games that I think are leaps and bounds more fun than League, so don't worry, I've not lost the entire plot. Not just yet. With those problems people and myself find with the game, the toxicity, the balance and the power creep and even the monetization, if we somehow combated or removed those issues, would we fix our enjoyment of the game? At very least, just for ourselves. We don't work for Riot. From my perspective then, the solution is clear. If I want to be rid of toxicity and being at the mercy of balance and power creep, then I should stop playing weak off metas. No more pre-game lobby snide comments, no more being inherently weaker than my opponent. I'm sorry to say this to all of my viewers who like when I play AD and AP Thresh, but in order to gain my fun in League of Legends back, I have finally decided that I would play Hybrid Thresh instead. No! Off-meta is my entire reason to play games. Carving out my destiny and making builds and strategies myself is like 80% of the fun. Also, more on that Hybrid Thresh in another video, hopefully. I'm still kind of cooking it up, but I can tell you now, it's so fun. So, in that case, what did I do? Well, you could choose to mute toxic teammates or even pre-mute lobbies, only play with pre-mades, and just get good enough to beat power creeping champs. But that's not really my advice either. You lose out on the nice parts of the community which absolutely exist, and you'd miss out on the carefree fun of not tryharding every game. Actually, I think that these proposed actions can contribute to hating the game rather than having more fun. I think they're great ideas for winning more games and ranking up, but this ain't about that. I think after over 10 years of Thresh jungle, AD Thresh, AP Thresh, and Hybrid Thresh, which I've heard called a TFT build, I'm pretty immune. At the end of the day, the toxic teammates, the bad teammates, the good teammates, and your enemies are all individuals living their own lives with their own circumstances, most of the time. Maybe the one instant blaming you is having a bad day and lashing out. Does this justify them being immature? Absolutely not! But I don't think any of these silly mid-game arguments ever start out as something personal. Someone's toxic and blaming you? They're just lashing out, don't want to admit to any faults. They're trying to distract from the hilarious misplay they just did. In all likelihood, it's their problem. I think the sooner and more often you understand that, the less likely you'll be affected by these kinds of comments. If they're effective, then even if you did mute after the first comment, chances are that comment's already done damage to your mental game. If you mute even beforehand, you've antagonized your teammates, and you don't want to play a 5v5 game, you want to play a 1v9 game. And that's a lot of pressure for a fun game. Yeah, if the toxicity is a bit much and you don't want to see it, go ahead and mute. Let them vent somewhere you can't hear them. But I wouldn't take particularly personal offense to someone spamming pings at me after they die. If anything, I'm more likely to laugh at it or maybe go with it for the bit, but never a personal problem. I'm pretty unlikely to meet them in the next game or the next 100 games, so I don't need to worry about that. You don't need to prove anything to them. If you play well, you'll speak volumes, and if you happen not to, hey, it's one game. Next up, we have the issue of power creep, frustrating new champions, and all the stupid stuff Riot changes or adds to the game. Yeah, I don't like it. I think the game should be far less snowbally than it is. I think the big nerfing of item damage in Season 14 was a good thing, and darn if I'm not going to have a little rage when Lilia walks out of every skill shot I throw, then when else am I going to throw a fit? While I might not like designs sometimes, like I think Smolder is, well, I think we should delete him for starters. But at least gameplay-wise, at some point during Arena, I came to accept that this is just what League is now. There are hyper-mobile multi-dash champions in the game. A League boomer like me hails from the time of Feral Flare stat sticking, but at least 2 dashes were considered a premium. Accepting the changes and watching these darn young'uns zooming all over the place with Pyke doing stuff our old bones can't was a long process, but I got there in the end. I'm not here to tell you League is perfectly balanced and you're bad. I massively disagree with that kind of thing, and think if you want to vent about a champion being frustrating, you should be more than allowed to. Nowadays, League is like a single-player, action, power fantasy RPG, except it's multiplayer. You can't have big power fantasies without someone else being much weaker than you, so some level of snowballing and multi-kills are inevitable. Getting these plays done through high-speed mechanics is addicting, so when I think about it, I don't think they deserve any less merit than attempting to win through more macro and tactical means, so long as they feel deserved anyway. I just like to focus on the feasible strengths of my champions and apply what I know they can do to the situation. I might hate everything getting dodged by Lilia, and I hate Liandry's existence, but man, I cannot think of anything more satisfying than actually catching those fast champions with a hook. If you can think of something better, I'd love to hear it. Monetization is something you may disagree with as well, and yet the resolution is obvious. Only buy things you'd want to buy. Gacha games are everywhere, and you can't really convince anyone to not part with their money for something they see value in. If you think it's their loss, then let them take the L, but in their head, it's hopefully worth it. But no, I'm not getting the Jinx thing. There's a World Link event coming up. I'm not really one to be buying skins, especially over the past few years. Not many of them have particularly appealed to me. But damn, if Janitor Thresh isn't the best Thresh skin, I don't know what is. But is League suddenly fun once we solve these issues for ourselves? Maybe. But what if you just find the game frustrating? The obvious solution is to stop playing it. Maybe forever. Or maybe just for a bit. I know there are people that cannot stop playing the game for one reason or another. For example, you have a YouTube channel based around playing funny AD Thresh games and you don't like the state of the meta and you keep playing anyway because you want to provide the funny content. I might have been there. In which case, a break does wonders. The moment the game isn't fun, stop playing. Maybe just for the day if that's all it takes, but if that happens often, if the third game is peaking frustration, quit out. If the second game of the day is grinding your gears, exit out. And if the first game you're playing in that day is ceaselessly tolling your mental state, it's time to put the game down for at least a week. Some people get too focused on playing well. League players commonly focus on playing to improve, and I get it. It's addictive. But it's a lot of pressure as well. Trying to improve when you're not feeling it is a recipe for burnout. I think in that situation, it's time to step back and remember what fun is. No, don't go back to League and be like, fine, I'll play off meta. That's not my point. That has not been my point in this video and never will be. You play exactly how you want to play when you feel like it. Instead, how about trying out something quite different that's really fun? If you are a mechanics flaring speed action addict, why don't you try this little known game called Ultra Kill? It's easily become my favourite FPS of all time with one of, if not my top, favourite boss fight of all time, rewards skill massively and has plenty of replayability, and it's not even out of early access yet. If you want to slow down and enjoy something more tactical, but TFT is a little too fast or heavy on RNG, then why not try this wonderful strategy auto battler called Mecha Bellum, building your board of units every round with minimal RNG involvement, emphasizing tactical decision making, but with just enough of the random element to make each game different and interesting, and nigh infinite ways to combine the units available to deploy. Maybe there's a single player game with a story or campaign you've been wanting to put time into. Now would be a brilliant time to put League down for a bit and immerse yourself in a new world. Now, the first two games are something I'd actually want to talk about a bit more, and maybe you'll see something about that soon. I could definitely talk about them for at least 10 minutes, but with this other one, we'd be here for several hours at least. So we get rid of burnout and toxicity and reframe our mind. What is left in our specially prepared game of League of Legends to work with? Why put this effort for this game? When I truly loved League of Legends in its golden age, for me that was about season 3 to 6. I loved just how many ways you could play the game. Tactical, macro-focused approaches through clever split pushing, farming, jungle route ganks, focusing on crafting builds never before seen or items that suit you better than anything anyone else could come up with. Through to those crazy high mechanic plays, dashes and bashes that make League fights so addicting. Over time, you can master all of these ways of play and become a unique player with your own distinct style. You can overcome tremendous odds through team play, or even beat antagonistic teammates that don't believe you can win. Speaking of that, what's the deal with ranked? Should it be avoided? Personally, I do. I don't currently think I'd value being evaluated playing the game the way it is, and I'd much prefer to play without taking it too seriously at the moment. Not that I dislike ranked in general, I'm quite happily playing ranked in Yu-Gi-Oh! Macedol, Mechabellum, and even Tekken 8 currently, and I sometimes think that if the league meta changes to something I quite like, I'd probably be down to play it, but only when that becomes the case. Fun and competitiveness, or fun and victory, don't have to be mutually exclusive, you can have both. Some people will have the most fun in League when playing their best with the highest odds. It can be exhausting, and I still recommend breaks when it gets too much, and I definitely have fun doing that too sometimes. Just not now. Unfortunately, I haven't really felt like playing ranked in League in, well, several years. Pretty much every bout of ranked games each season have been somehow content related. Whether I had a force that I should rank up before talking about a certain subject, or somehow I'll get more viewers if I'm in Diamond. But I get either disappointed or straight up bored by the third game at most. It just isn't for me. But I'm not saying it will never happen, and not saying you should avoid it by itself. Instead, avoid playing when the pressure or stress sucks the fun out of the game. And if that means avoiding ranked, then it is what it is. I also haven't been a big fan of the Victoria skins, so I just don't have the urge to get to Gold 5 like I used to. All of this applies to many games and MOBAs, I'm sure. I'm not here to argue that League is better than any of them, and it probably isn't. But if you've had fond times playing League when it was truly fun for you, and was a game that you could unashamedly admit to loving, then I hope that parts of this video can help you relive that a little. League players, communities, and media tend to focus on negatives. And I'm not saying they should stop, since this is definitely one of the games of all time, but we gotta shine light on why we play this game in the first place sometimes. Or else, what are we doing with our lives? I like playing Thresh, Gwen, and even Kassadin, with many more champs that have interesting playstyles I'd love to try. And it just so happens that League of Legends is the game they're at. If none of this works, or if there are other, unfixable issues you have with the game, then my advice, in that case, really is to move on. Don't take a break for a week or a month. Go indefinite. Maybe, like waiting for a non-tier 0 format in Yu-Gi-Oh!, there'll be a League season in the future that piques your interest. And I would hope to greet you again on such a day. Thank you very much for watching. My thoughts on this subject have been hard to put into words without rambling in 7 different directions, so I hope this made sense to you all, and I hope it helped. Special thanks to the members AJBeat91, Warsquid, Ultimate Ground, Cryostad, Gentleman Zeta, Lunar Eagle 1996, 53rd Alabama Booty Obi-Wan Kenobi, N-Era, AC Immortal, Mr. Noodle, Bass1378, Gilbert Morals, Tiemann Carantful, Luxius, Dario Castro, Entity 9, Overseer, Enluca, Colorado Cosmico, Hollowed, Lunar Arc, and King of the Crossroads, the Vex Crew. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel.